All right, we'll call to order the Finance Committee meeting for Thursday, August 13th. If everyone would stand for the prayer and invocation and the pledge. The prayer of St. Francis. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. Grant that I might not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call. We are missing Councilman Cullen, Councilman Valentine, and Councilman Kluwat, who are all excused for work. Public comment period. If you wish to speak, please come forward and fill out a comment card. I have been asked to move an item on the agenda for time purposes. I'll go ahead and grant that request. We are going to move item number 22 to this right now. We'll go ahead.
Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Councilman Todd Lambert, second by Councilman Bell to move item 22 to right here on the agenda. Before we do that, Ms. Secretary, please take note that Councilman Valentine has joined. Item 22, resolution to approval to borrow an amount not to exceed $1 million, Water Revenue Bond Series 2009, the Ascension Consolidated Utilities District Number 1. Councilman Joseph, did you want to speak on this about?
I make a motion to pass.
Okay, motion by Councilman Joseph to pass.
Second.
Second by Councilman Thompson. Discussion.
I'd just like to hear an explanation on what.
Okay. Do we have bond counsel? Or?
Yes, gentlemen, good evening. Marvin Grow. I'm local counsel for the Water District. Some of you came back for you about 3 years ago. We asked you permission to put ad valorem tax on the ballot, and y'all graciously granted us permission, and we passed a 10 mil tax with the understanding that we were going to do about $5 to $6 million worth of improvements on the West Bank, mostly in infrastructure for water, so we provide fire protection throughout the parish and provide water to areas that did not have water. Fortunately, 70% of the voters voted for it, and we passed the tax. Unfortunately, during the course of the getting ready to prepare to sell the bonds, there was a discrepancy in how much money we were going to actually get from that tax base. So we had to take the lower amount in order to be safe, and we had to cut the project back slightly, a couple of $1 million, about $1.5 million. And we cut some of the projects out. One of the projects we cut was a water tower in Palo Alto, which is on Highway 1 South, and that which is in Councilman Joseph's district. And then we cut a little area, A-band area out in Councilman Schicksteiner's district. Well, now we've had 2 years of ad valorem tax, and I'm happy to say that the original figures that we used are what we're collecting, which is about another $100,000 a year. Instead of $150 a year, we're getting about $245,000 a year ad valorem. So now we can go back and sell the bonds to finish our Phase 3 project. So that's what it's the good news is that we're coming to ask permission to borrow the money for the bond, get permission to the bond commission to sell the bonds. It's not any obligation of the parish, but you must pass on as being governed by the parish. Plus, we are making a profit, and we have the cash flow based on the numbers that we have produced over the last 2 years. I have our bond counsel, Jerry Osborne here, who most of you are familiar with, and I have an engineering firm, GSA, Glenn Shaheen, who is handling the project for us. And it's a continuation of our Phase 3, and we're trying to finish it. That's the explanation of the project.
Yeah. Marvin, can you explain the type of bond and how it goes in because it is
it's a revenue bond.
Yeah.
It's a revenue bond. It's based on our revenues. The bondholders will pledge our ad valorem taxes pledged to pay those bonds first. The parish doesn't have any financial obligation to guarantee the bonds. That goes straight to the bondholders, but state law requires, and the parish and the home rule charter requires, the parish charter requires y'all to pass on this for protection. We do appreciate all the support that you've given to us in the past. Quite frankly, 5 years ago, the first time we borrowed bonds, y'all helped us fund those bonds, $150,000. Some of you were council then, and you kind of fed the pump for us. And since that time, we've been on our own, and we're on now tonight. We asking you permission to move forward and continue our infrastructure growth. I have a bond counsel to answer any questions. Technically, the bonds, and I have our engineering firm here to answer any questions on the actual construction. By the way, we're probably about 2/3 finished the actual project before this little addition. We have most of the lines down, 8-inch lines throughout. We have a 12-inch line going to the jail. We have fire plugs in about 90% of the West Bank now. We're all within about 500 feet of each residence, Quinn? 500 feet of each residence. So we're making a lot of progress.
Thank you, Marvin.
Any further discussion? Parish President Martinez.
I don't have, I'm not against it, but I want to ask Jerry, because, a couple questions. One being that in the event this water district, ACUD, utility district would default, in the past, we had a couple sewer districts that defaulted, and the parish had to pick up the pieces. And
Well,
so I'm just clarifying what Marvin said. We don't have any liability whatsoever.
you have no legal liability.
But if it defaults,
You know that any default in the
Right.
parish is not good for the parish credit, even if it's a bank, let's say, which you have no absolute liability for. It still isn't a good thing
Sure.
for your credit. And the same thing would happen here. But as far as legal liability, the bondholders could not go to court and say, we want the parish to pay it, because the court would not listen to them.
no. But I know in the past that's happened to the parish on a couple sewer districts. So I just wanted to clarify that not that we legally liable, but we would have to pick up the pieces. if we did.
And I'm assuming that the figures calculated for the bond schedule and the payments and all that stuff were fairly conservative with, in light of the recession and declining
Right,
revenues.
I have, if you'd like, see the projections I brought. The consulting engineers have projected the incoming revenues necessary to do this for the bond commission and for DHA. And so they've projected all the revenues and found that there should be ample revenue to pay. As Marvin said, we really could have included them earlier had we known that it would take a long time before we made as much money as it did. But of course, nobody wanted us to assume the upper amount. Everybody wanted to assume the lower amount. And now the upper amount has come in, and now that the construction is going well, they project that there will be ample revenues. And of course, DHH is going to be willing to buy these bonds on the basis of this projection. One thing that wasn't pointed out is that this is an unusual opportunity. As you know, the federal government has passed the RRA Act, the Stimulus Act, and what it's doing is they're subsidizing borrowing so that people will do capital improvements this year and next year rather than sometime in the future. So the federal government is going to help subsidize this project, and the way they're going to do it is DHH is going to charge a total, an interest rate of 2.95% with a 0.5% administration fee, so that's a total of 3.45%. Well, that's a very low cost of borrowing right there. But then the district may be eligible, they haven't guaranteed us yet, but they may be guaranteed to a 30%, they may be allowed a 30% forgiveness where we actually don't have to pay back 30% of the debt. and that may occur, but what is going to occur is under the ARRA Act, the district will be able to get a rebate from the federal government on its interest costs up to 35% of the interest. So the federal government is going to pay 35% of the 2.95 interest rate. So when you add the 65% of the interest rate they're going to have to pay and the 0.5% administrative fee, the interest rate really goes down to 2.72%. So that is indeed a low cost of borrowing. But as I said, the government is making that available to encourage governments to do financing this year, so it'll stimulate the economy.
Councilman Thompson?
Yes, I would like to commend ACUD1, their league and the engineering on the vision to move the water on the west side of the river. I just wish that we can do the same thing on the east side in the near future. I just want to thank you guys.
Councilman Joseph?
Yeah. Mr. Osborne. One of the questions of securing this bond is one of the things, how much we going to grow. You say annual growth about 3% based on the number. But we are pretty much in a rural area, so anything that comes on the west side right now is rural area, and any development come, that will definitely increase our revenue funds on that ad valorem tax.
It really should. All this, any construction, any growth, hopefully that will add to your assessed valuation and allow you to collect more revenue. I'm not going to bore you about everything, but you know, when a government spends $1 trillion more a year than it takes in, like our government's doing, that is inflationary. What my freshman economics professor a number of years ago told me, that that is inflationary, and so with all of the things being the same, money should lose value, and 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it should cost more to buy a loaf of bread or a gallon of gas or do anything. And so you're going to be repaying this money with dollars that are not worth as much as they are today, and yet you'll be paying an interest rate which people paid during the Depression when there was no increase in the value of anything.
Okay, any further discussion? I have a motion by Councilman Joseph and a second by Councilman Thompson. Any objection? Motion passes.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, item number 5, the Lamar Dixon reports. I have a speaker, Ms. Catherine Koppel.
Good evening, gentlemen. Yesterday, the people paid the first installment of $250,000 for the purchase of Lamar Dixon. Governments, local, state, and federal, do not make money. They take money from us, the people. The rest of the $7.5 million purchase price is projected to be in hand before the end of the year. Parish officials are formulating a plan for the purchase of Lamar using state and federal money, but you have no plan to pay for the operation. In May, President Martinez and this council promised a plan would be formulated to provide for the operation and maintenance costs. A committee was formed. Where is that plan? How will we pay for the operation costs for the rest of this year? Operating revenues for '08 were almost $1 million. $788,000 of this was from sales tax. This year, $416,000 was budgeted January 1 to June 30th for the operation. With the current sales tax collections, where will the $600,000 plus come from to continue operations for the remainder of this year? Will SMG continue to manage the facility? If not, who will? What funds will be drawn from for the rest of '09? And how much money will be needed to pay for operating costs? How will this affect other services? These questions and others need to be answered. In '07, the cost for utilities at Lamar, which is the largest operating expense, was around $400,000. If plans to renovate and air condition some buildings are realized, this cost will increase. Money can be taken from Lighting District 6 in order to pay for utilities. The lighting tax revenues in this district are anticipated around $400,000 this year, but expenses are almost the same. Although the fund will have a projected $988,000 at the end of the year, it will not be able to pay for utilities at Lamar long term. Third-party studies done by professionals have always stated a dedicated tax is necessary for long-term viability. The people rejected such a dedicated tax last fall. The fact that state and federal money have been earmarked for Lamar and the purchase of it does not provide a plan for the costs related to operating and maintaining it. The people were promised a plan. How is the administration and council proposing to pay for the significant cost of day-to-day operations without a dedicated tax? I believe this committee is the one to answer that question. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, Mr. Crawford?
Good evening, Council. You should have our June financial report before you. As usual, our first page is a comparative statement over the 4 years of the original lease. The highlighted number to the right-hand side is our operating loss at this over the 4 years, roughly $248,000 per year. As you look down towards the bottom, again, you'll see our cash and investments that were remaining at June 30th, and our fund balance. On page 2, gives you the highlights for the month. As you can see, we had a negative variance of $25,000, but as you look back through the detail of the direct event income, you'll see that we had a number of events that were unbudgeted. There's one number that will stand out, the high school rodeo finals at $14,000 that you'll see in that first column is kind of that is reflected also or made up in the ancillary income. That's why we take a hit, if you will, on the rent side of things. If you'll notice on the ancillary report on page 3, we picked up $32,000 in ancillaries. That's our RV income, our stalls, rentals, food and beverage, things like that. So, and at this time, we also thought it was pretty successful considering at that time the facility was closing. Going back through there, you'll see the other operating income. Again, our monthly RV income has held up for us. We're holding expenses as best we can. As you look through that indirect expenses, there's $82,000 that we had in operations. If you'll recall, we did a very massive maintenance projects. We had painting going on, pressure washing, things like that. We were getting the facility cleaned up for whatever the future held for us. So as we turn on to page 4, you'll see that even with those issues going on, in our 6-month highlights, we still held at an $84,000 positive variance. So we were still way ahead of budget by this time. Page 5, again, the first 3 columns as you come from the left, that's the monthly highlights reiterated. It also shows you the other 4 columns will show you the year-to-date actuals, year-to-date budgets. I think the number down at the bottom that is most impressive is the $353,000 positive variance in the combined income side of things. Page 6 is our balance sheet. Page 7 is our accounts receivable. As of the audit, you'll see down at the receivables past 90 days. The Gustav, the National Guard, and the YMCA were removed from the audit. I don't know exactly the details on that, other than it was beyond our 2008 audit. So I don't know if the OEP and the National Guard money is still collectible through parish avenues. Also included is just a look forward. I've concluded our September calendar, our October calendar, and November. Things are picking up quickly for us. We've recovered about 82% of our former calendar, and we have been fortunate enough to add 3 new national events. Will be a team in October. There'll be a national team roping event, a national team penning event, and also in November, this cowboy-mounted shooting competition. It will be a new event for us as well. This will bring folks in from all over the country. We're very excited about those. We should be receiving contracts back from the National Barrel Horse Association for a September 2010 event as well. So we're gaining ground also in future 2010. The Sportsman Show is returning. The high school rodeo finals will return. We've also won the bid for the junior high school rodeo. We're adding 2 new rodeos to our spring and summer calendar as well. So the stability that we were looking for is certainly paying off for us quickly.
Eddie, can you say that again about the National Guard and the OEP, that those
If
monies
you
owed?
recall, we had those numbers on our calendar, on our roll for, well, quite a while. I'm not sure, we haven't spoken directly with the auditor to see but they have been removed from our book. I don't know if that's just a write-off or if it's still something that can be pursued by the parish.
Councilman Lambert?
Yeah, Ms. Crockett, on the utility bill paid on behalf of the YMCA at $5,600, is that something the parish owes, or I see you got the parish as the customer for it?
Yes, there was a.
Is that why they were still there in the transition of them
The
leaving?
Y had moved out, and there was some transition issues of who would pick up that bill. So the lights didn't go out on the 4-H extension office. We went ahead and paid the bill. The bill came to us.
Okay.
Normally that building would not show up on our bill.
Is that the average bill per month on
What I
that?
understand is that's an average.
$5,600 a month just for the YMCA
Yes,
bill?
sir.
On electric?
Now, I would also say that they were running that building during their operation, that it was running probably 10 to 12 hours a day. So we would certainly now, with parish staff, have been out there monitoring those thermostats. So
Okay.
I would hope there would be some savings there.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. President, do you have any light to shed on that, the National Guard and the OEP monies owed to us? Am I just...
Those were 2 receivables that were over 90 days. The National Guard, in fact, I have a meeting with them first thing in the morning. They have agreed to pay their $40,000. The $30,000 was us. So we, I took it from my left pocket and put it in the right and covered our expenses and took it off as a receivable.
Okay. Thanks. Councilman Shakespeare?
Yes, thank you. President Martinez, do you mind if we get an update from Mr. Gotro about some of the, I know he's working on some cost-saving measures, or do you want to wait until?
Well, we met this afternoon. Of course, we're looking at options, and certainly there's some pretty hefty retainer contracts out there that we are certainly going to be able to eliminate and be able to even take care of a lot. Like some of them are like how much a month for your retainer contract?
We've got something out there, $4,000,
Yeah.
$1,500, things like that.
We're going to be able to eliminate a lot of that. We can put timers on some of this stuff. A couple of times, 2, 3 times, going out there, and you go into the chapel and air conditioning running, and nobody there. They had an event there Friday and stayed on all weekend. So we also are setting up a meeting with David Herring with Energy, and we're going to go over some cost-saving measures with him. We've already discussed that. Basically, the Y building and the chapel, we are looking at recreation, taking over those 2 buildings and be able to have the ability to rent them and have income, and also take care of the 100 and so acres and separate that from the big building to where that won't be a cost associated with that, and there will be income coming into recreation that we feel can offset any cost that would be spent there. So it's a work in progress. We are doing, I really feel confident that we will be able to work this out. I've also spoke to our legislators. We have some other plans there that we're looking at, and we'll be able to report to you every month and give you this plan that we're going to, full plan that we're going to put together. So, but we're going to be okay.
I had an opportunity yesterday after the signing to take a tour. Mr. Gotro took me on a tour of the improvements that were being made on the grounds and some of the other things, and so I encourage people, if you have an opportunity, to really take advantage of that and see the improvements are pretty remarkable, and a lot of the plans and everything are going to be good because it's going to be open for people of the parish, which is the way it should be.
What you don't realize, we would have to pay for these improvements whether we bought it or didn't buy it.
Right.
Okay, so it's good that we're having to do that now. And also, so the LSU and Extension Service, had we moved out, we would certainly had to pay rent somewhere to somebody to house those because we do have a contract with them. So, you know, you have to when we put together our final plan, bring to you, we're going to incorporate all of that in, and I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, thank you, Mr. Crawford. Next, we go into the financial reports section for our monthly finance reports. Ms. Gwen LeBlanc.
Thank you, Chairman Lohr, and good evening to the members of the council. Before you have your normal sales tax report. The figures, as you can see, show a decline. We're beginning to realize the effects of the national recession, but notwithstanding the figures you see in the middle column that report these declines, when you compare it to our budget, we anticipate that we will meet our budget this year. The only fund that may be maybe 2% under budget is East Ascension Drainage. And then on the second page is the bar chart showing you the comparison between collections in the sectors from 2009 versus 2008. After 7 months of operations, consumer retail is up about 9%. Motor vehicles continues to decrease, although hopefully with the stimulus plan that we will see a bump in it for temporarily at least. They're down 13.2%. Business to business is up 1.3%, and the chemical corridor, comparing the first 7 months of 09 to 08, is down 0.88%, just under 1%. The next page is a pie chart, and as usual, this gives you a depiction of where we derive our taxes by sector. The petrochemical industry and their suppliers, you can see the purple slice of the pie. Consumer retail is the blue, 34% versus 48% for the petrochemical industry. Business to business represents 70%, and this is year to date, only reflecting the 1% sales tax as a model. And motor vehicles represents 11% of our collections. And of course, the historical chart for each district is the last page, and the yellow shows what we're collecting through the beginning of the year through July, and then compare it to collections since 1999. In the red is their total collections. Okay, and then I do have one announcement to report to the council that as of Monday, August the 24th, our Sales and Use Tax Authority will be relocating to a new office on Burnside Street, 1124 South Burnside Street, and that's next to the District Attorney's office. And of course, the primary reason for this relocation was for additional space. Our current location at Francois Plaza, we are unable to expand it because of the configuration of that piece of leased property that we were leasing, because of we'd be in violation of the City of Gonzales's code that they would not have enough parking space to accommodate that. So we looked at that, we talked to Mr. Irvin, and there was no way that we could renovate or expand the existing building. And then the last report I have right now, besides the budget amendment, is the revenue expenditure report. This is a report that you're pretty well familiar with. The green bars show on the first page the revenues, and that would show revenues that are below the percent of year collections, and the reasons are denoted behind the charts. And the second page is the expenditures. Now, this is the reverse. The green bars show the expenditures that exceed the percent of year we're at 7 months, at 6 months. This is a June report at 50%. And the reasons are also there. once you review it and have time to look over it, if you have any questions, just give me a call and I'll be glad to discuss with you. And the very last page is just the listing of checks that exceeded 100,000 for the month of June, and they total almost 1.3 million, those checks alone. Okay, and now Dawn will give you the budget amendment.
Before we move to the budget amendment,
okay.
I just wanted to open up the floor for some comments, and I'll start. First, I guess it's still a little unsettling to see the sales tax collections drop for another month, a few months now in a row. But I guess the silver lining is we still are exceeding budget as far as our collections. So I appreciate the efforts that were put into making such a conservative budget, because that's obviously kind of being our saving grace right now. Hopefully, we'll get through with this downturn, and the cash for clunkers thing might help give us a little boost in the motor vehicle sales, which are probably looks like one of the most or the most largest drop that we have in taxes. So maybe in a couple months we'll start to see the results of that. But
And just a note on, as reported daily in the news, that the economists and those powers that be predict that the recession has bottomed out and that we should start recovery, although they predict a slow recovery. But we should be starting to recover from the national recession.
right, so hopefully we've kind of weathered the storm, but I guess it remains to be seen. Further comments? Parish President?
I just think, again, that we're gonna be okay for the year, because I think still 10% on the budget. We have leeway there, so that's good, and hopefully things can pick up. It seems like if you go out in the community and you go to the ribbon cuttings that we've been going to, that things seem in the last month or so have picked up. So hopefully those sales tax figures will reflect that in the near future. So, but we're gonna make it through this thing.
All right. Any further discussion? Okay, great. We'll move on to item number 8, the budget amendment.
Good evening. What you have before you is an ordinance for budget amendment number 5, and it reads as follows. An ordinance to amend the ordinance approving, adopting, and appropriating the 2009 operating and capital budgets for the Parish of Ascension, adopted by the Ascension Parish Council on the 20th day of November 2008. Section 1. The Ascension Parish Council hereby ordains that the ordinance approving, adopting, and appropriating the 2009 operating and capital budgets for the Parish of Ascension is hereby amended, approved, and appropriated as follows. Operating budget, general fund. Expenditures for the coroner, medical, and dental services, $4,000. There's an attachment which explains this is to perform more detailed forensic autopsies. Recreation fund, revenue, registration fees, flag football, $10,100. The expenditures are salary for officials, $2,400. FICA tax expense, $190. Fire, casualty, and general liability, $1,200. Workman's compensation insurance, $150. Miscellaneous expense, $700. And the flag football program, $5,400.
Second. Motion by Councilman Bell, second by Councilman Cullen to adopt the budget amendment. Any discussion? Any objection? Oh, sorry, Mr. Parish President.
Go ahead.
Oh, motion passes.
One thing that we're watching, and it's disturbing, that I want to discuss was the prisoners' medical cost at the jail. I mean, last month we had one prisoner in a span of 3 or 4 days was $8,000 bill was. So when we increased the size, we also increased the cost, and hopefully we're going to have to really watch that in the future. And also the criminal court fund continues to rise. Again, that's an unfunded mandate that we're going to have to watch very closely in the budgeting process next year. So we are working With the judges, I plan on going to the next judges meeting and work with them, and also get with some of the hospitals around and see if we can get some cheaper care for our prisoners. On this forensic, the reason they wanted to amend the budget there, we were sending our bodies to Earl K. Long, and now we're going to send them to the police lab so they can get better and quicker results. So that was the reasoning behind that.
Great. Item number 9, the contracts report, CAO Cedric Grant.
This report reflects the contracts that have been entered into over the last 2 months since you've had the last Finance Committee meeting. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Anybody have any questions on this report? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Item number 10, ratification of property damage claim for Harry Robert, Insurance Company. I don't believe I have that in my packet. Does anybody?
Neither me.
Do we have anything on this? Can anybody explain it?
Yes, Mr. Robert was supposed to be here. This is a claim that they paid off, not a lawsuit, a claim, and it exceeded $10,000. And according to the policy adopted by the council to settle claims, any claim $10,000 or above required council approval. So that was the purpose of this request.
Is there a
Let me see if I can.
huge issue if we pass on this? I don't really feel comfortable adopting something I have no information on.
No, it was a ratification.
Make a motion pending legal.
That's a good idea.
Make a motion pending legal.
Motion by Councilman Thompson to approve pending legal, second by Councilman Joseph. Any further discussion?
I can make one comment. It was an auto accident that we were involved in, so it was a settlement of that. 10,000. Exactly, $10,000. Lindsay, that was the Jewel Gotro case, claim.
Okay, any further discussion? Any objection? Motion passes. Item number 11, change order number 3, Charles Carter Construction for plumbing, electrical, and signage work for the 7th District Fire Station in the amount of $5,884.61. Councilman Johnson, I think you...
Yeah, I talked to representatives from Fire District 1. They were on their way or were supposed to be here tonight. They ran into some problems coming to the meeting. It's basically the last change order on the 7th District Fire Station renovation stuff that's complete. The construction of that building, there was some stuff in the plumbing and electrical work in the kitchen area that had to be upgraded.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Councilman Joseph, second by Councilman Bell. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion passes. Item number 12, approval of low bid for renovations in addition to the Ascension Parish Library in Gonzales.
Good evening. My name is Clark Gernon. I'm with Remsen Haley Herpin Architects. We've received and opened bids for the renovations and additions to the Ascension Parish Library Gonzales branch on July 28th of this year. After review of all the bids, RKL Constructors Incorporated of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, had the low bid of $5,385,000, including the base bid and all alternates. On the 29th of that month, the Ascension Parish Library Board of Control was also made aware of the low bid and has made an motion based on our recommendation to approve that bid. This evening, I hereby recommend the approval of the low bid toward RKL Constructors Incorporated.
So moved.
Move acceptance to before the council.
Motion by Councilman Shake Snyder, second by Councilman Joseph. I have some discussion. Curious what the actual plans are. Perhaps it's just me, but I haven't haven't seen what the plans are for the renovation, what exactly is going to be done.
Well, the site is being just north of here is the current building is a fairly long building. Actually, on the back street, there will be a new parking lot designed and not a new entry, but an addition that would go along the entire back of the existing facility. So they would end up having an entry off of the main, which would be updated and upgraded, as well as having entry off of the backside of the lot with parking on both sides as well. And the expansion would increase the size of it by twice. So it would be about 56,000 square feet. Actually, pardon me, 65,000 square feet now total.
Mr. President, have you seen anything on this? Just curious if the administration is aware of what's going on too. Okay.
$5,300,000.
Can,
I guess one of the questions I have is how many patrons a year you utilize that facility?
The facility sees approximately 1,000 people a week. Well, probably more than that now. The entire library system sees approximately 6,300 people per week. And this is a project that we began in the year 1998 to expand the facility based on the population projections. And to do that, it did require the construction of the Dutchtown facility, which we're hoping will open in January of 2010. And then also the expansion and renovation of the Gonzales facility. Also to be reviewed in future dates will be the Galvez location and the Donaldsonville location to see what needs to be done to those facilities to meet population projections.
The populations that come in and that utilize the libraries now, what's the main thing they come in for? Do they come in for computers, or they come in for classes? I know you hold different type seminars there and stuff like that. Traditionally, you used to go to the library, sit down and read a book. What happens today? When I go to the library, somebody goes to the library.
Yes. Actually, the facilities, all of the facilities do have computers located in them for public access. And our circulation statistics, the amount of books we check out, have actually gone up because we're seeing more clientele now of more variety because we have people who come in to utilize the computers. We offer computer classes to the public. We do a lot of training of individuals on how to use automation. And also we work with LaWorks on dealing with job applications, people working to complete their applications online to seek employment. And we still have, in other words, we have just finished our summer reading program where we've seen approximately 6,000 people over the months of June and July working with the children. So the library's goals and missions really haven't changed. It's the tools that we use to complete those goals and missions that have been updated and continue. And we do continue to see a lot of growth. In the past year, in 2008, over 313,000 people used the public libraries in Ascension Parish. So we do have the plans for the Dutchtown site and the Gonzales site at the Gonzales Library. Anyone is welcome to come in and look at them and see what we have planned for the facility.
Anjay, I was gonna ask that if it's possible to email that to the council and administration. I don't know if those are electronic format.
We can see about getting
If-
something in electronic format.
If
to
we
the-
could do
to the
that
council.
before next, the council meeting next Thursday, that would be great.
Sure, sure.
Okay.
And we have the hard copies if anyone wants to come in and look at what we have planned.
Okay. Any further discussion? I had a motion by Councilman Schicksteiner, I think, and a second by Councilman Joseph. Any further discussion? Any objection? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item number 13, request for annual renewal of budget allocation of $25,000 for volunteer ascension for 2010. Ms. Audrey Boudreau, I think you have a few slides to share with us.
We do. We have a few slides, and thank y'all for having us here tonight. I want to introduce my board president, Mr. Randall Lejeune. He'll take over when we start talking about the dollars, and we'll just go through our little PowerPoint presentation if Lester will put it up really quickly. And I just wanted to tell you Volunteer Ascension's mission is to impact the needs of Ascension Parish by promoting and developing volunteerism. We do this mostly through our programs and our events that we have throughout the year, and that provided over $1 million in services and volunteer hours in 2008. In front of you, you have the whole PowerPoint presentation that we're going to zap through because of time constraints tonight. And it breaks down that over $1 million in the different programs and volunteer services and the services provided. The annual report is the one that breaks it down. The PowerPoint presentation shows you all of our other numbers and things that we have as well. In Volunteer Ascension, in 2008, we had almost 1,000 volunteers that we recruited and sent out, and also that provided these services through our programs. And it was over 32,000 hours that were provided to just do good deeds and for our programs and things that we do have. Now I'm going to just turn it over to Mr. Randall Lejeune and let him tell you a little bit about the financials so that you'll know how our budget breaks down.
The first slide that I have is the 2008 revenues for Volunteer Ascension. As you can see, we had corporate and private contributions of $31,000. We had the parish grant of $25,000. We had fundraisers, which is our Volunteer of the Year awards, and also the wine tasting, where we raised $25,000. And then we had in-kind donations of $11,400 for total revenues of $95,000. The next one is a graphical presentation of the 2008 revenues. As you can see, the parish grant comprises 26% of the total revenues for Volunteer Ascension, and the corporate donations are 33%. For 2009 budgeted revenues, of course, we're on a calendar year basis, so for the 2009 budgeted revenues, we have corporate, private donations or contributions of $26,500, which is actually a decrease from the previous year because of the economic impact of the national economy and, of course, local economy, and the parish grant of $25,000. Fundraisers, we budgeted less, $22,000 rather than $25,000, and in-kind is about the same. And our budgeted revenues graphically presented. We have the corporate and private donations comprise 31%. And as you can see, the parish grant now comprises 29% of our revenues for 2009. As far as the 2008 expenses, you can see that we had personnel costs of $30,000, administration of $13,000, travel $2,500, office $1,900, and program services of $42,000 for total expenses of $90,793. As far as the breakdown of our percentage of program costs, the community services comprises 58% of our program costs. School tools is 20%, uniform drive is 17%, and Making Difference Day is 5%. And basically, we ask that you please approve the $25,000 budget allocation to Volunteer Ascension. As you can see, it's sorely needed for operations.
Second. Motion by Councilman Bell, second by Councilman Thompson. Discussion real quick. I just wanted to thank you guys for coming forward and explaining how the funding is used. But I bet this is probably one of the easiest funding allocation requests we get every year. No doubt, and I don't think anybody else does, what a difference you guys make in people's lives, and we appreciate all your efforts.
Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Any objection? So moved. Thank you.
Thank you. And also, I wanted to let y'all know that I have some other board members here. If they would just stand real quick and show you who they are: Scott Richard, Harold Gyro, Ken Furman, and Josh Denkos. That could make it here with us tonight, too. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Item number 14, approval of change order number 1 for the 2007 IN 01 road project in the amount of negative $362,445.65. Motion by Councilman Todd Lambert, second by Councilman Benny Johnson. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion passes. Agenda item number 15, approval of change order number 1 for the 2007 TL.RW-01 Phase 1 project in the amount of negative $996.47. Motion by Councilman Thompson, second by Councilman Bell. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion passes. Item number 16, approval of purchase of property from Gary and Tanya Dunbar in the amount of $90,500 for the Roddy Road final phase, Parish project number 01-W-03, parcel number 4-1. Motion by Councilman Benny Johnson.
Second.
Second by Councilman Dennis Quillen. Discussion? Objection? Motion passes. Agenda item number 17, consultant selection for debris removal and debris removal monitoring.
Mr.
Parish
Chairman,
President.
I have a 16A.
I'm sorry? I'm sorry, I'm past 16A, forgive me. 16A is a funding request for Capital Region Legislative Delegation, Mr. President.
We had a letter written from the Capital Region Legislative Delegation, which was formed last year, year before last, and they are requesting an allocation of the dues are like $1,500 a year. You can either pay it once, $1,500 at a time, or you can pay for 4 years at $6,000. So I'm gonna suggest, rather than doing this every year, if we go ahead and pay the $6,000 a lump sum, that'll cover us for 4 years.
So offer that motion.
Motion by Councilman Adrian Thompson, second by Councilman Pat Bell. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion passes. Agenda item number 17, consultant selection for debris removal and debris removal monitoring. Mr. Cedric Grant.
Yes, Councilman. The Engineering Selection Committee met on Thursday, July 23rd, 2009, to consider proposals for debris removal. This is to get us in place for the hurricane season. Basically, what we do here is we pre-select folks in advance and put these contracts on hold until we need them. This is in accordance with FEMA guidelines. On debris removal, we had a list of about 8 firms that applied. You can see before you the matrix of the scores, and behind that is all of the pricing associated with their proposals. The committee recommends to you DRC Emergency Services.
Motion.
Number one ranking.
Motion by Councilman Thompson, second by Councilman Kent Shake Snyder. My only comment is that hopefully we don't end up like with what's happening in the neighboring parish with this and all of that. So any further discussion? Councilman Bell.
I'd just like to say, Mr. Grant, I commend you and your staff for staying ahead of the game. Hopefully, like Councilman Laura said, we never need the services, but we're in place just in case bad times come. And thank you, sir.
All righty. Councilman Joseph.
Mr. Grant, we have to do this every year, or this is, okay, all right. So it's good for at least 2, good.
Okay. Any objection? I'm
I want
sorry.
to comment on what you commented on. We had this, actually the same company, and we had a lot different results. Our total cost for the parish was about $9.8 million for everything. So it just depends on if you have your contract right.
Well, I'm glad we did. Appreciate efforts on that. Any more discussion? Any objection? Motion passes.
Councilman, the next selection for debris monitoring, we had 9 firms apply. Again, the committee met, and this is the non-engineering selection committee met so the engineering committee met for this selection, and recommend to you CDM engineering to provide these services.
Motion by Councilman Bell.
Second.
Second by Councilman Thompson. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion passes. Item number 18, consultant selection for traffic cameras. Mr. Cedric Grant.
Councilman, the non-professional selection committee met on August 5th, 2009. There was one submittal, American Traffic Solutions. You can see the folks that were involved in that, including the sheriff's office, was involved in the review of the RFP. And we recommend American Traffic Solutions to you for these services.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Bell. Second. Second by Councilman Cullen. Discussion? Objection? Motion passes. Item number 19, the 2006 ad valorem tax refund. Assessor Renee Michelle.
Hey, good evening. How y'all doing this evening?
Good.
I've been asked to come today to explain to you what this is ad valorem tax refund. It's actually an error that happened in our tax roll calculations in 2006. And what basically happened was there was a computer glitch of some sort that actually took some taxing districts and applied them to the wrong properties where they shouldn't have been. We didn't discover it till probably the beginning of 2007, and what we did, of course, we had to turn in a new recap. It didn't change any of the values, it just changed the taxes on a lot of properties. And what we did is we made the corrections to the state. We did, my office did. And actually, this is just explaining that the sheriff's office, what they had done is they had already allocated the tax money, the revenues for each taxing district for that year. And so this is to actually pay back what the districts were overpaid. From what I understand, it's the way that the bookkeeping in the sheriff's office has to do it. You understand? Do y'all have any questions about that? What happened was, actually what happened, you see, each property, is designated which taxing districts that they are in, you know, the lighting districts, any kind of a drainage district or anything like that. But what happened was some properties were put in wrong taxing districts, you know, and all this, and we didn't discover it actually until probably about March of the next year. It took us quite some time to actually locate each property and which one had, you know, an incorrect tax amount on it. Once we did that, we turned in our new tax recap to the Louisiana Tax Commission and then turned it into the sheriff's office. Well, y'all know that the taxes are collected in December, and the sheriff had already distributed a lot of the tax money by the time we discovered the error. So this is actually, you know, just correcting that error for that year.
So are we taking a hit to the budget, the 23,000?
You are, you know, you're paying this back, but you are, you know, you're going to get paid your revenue this year also. So, you know, I wondered why we couldn't just take it off the top of what y'all were going to get this year, but apparently their bookkeeping did not agree with that, and their auditor needs to see it as a refund coming from each district. You need to?
I just have a question because I have a district here.
Sure.
The $1,100 for Lighting District 4 going to come out
Your Lighting District 4 fund.
this year.
Mm-hmm.
To repay it back to.
Yes, and what, and
I'm
can
already in the deficit. Ms. Gwynn, I'm gonna have to get with you and get with Ms. What's coming. We definitely need to.
It's actually the sheriff's office that you pay the money to. Yeah.
I understand that, but if I have zero money, I can't pay the light bill. And this is really put a dent in Lighting District 4.
I understand what you're saying, I do.
Then again, it's not like we have a choice, is what you're saying.
Right.
Okay. So we'll have to.
But any questions, you know, if I can explain any better, or.
We need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Councilman Bell. Motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Councilman Todd Lambert. Any further discussion? Any objection? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
All right, item number 20, the 2008 audit presentation, Falcon Winkler. Mr. Timon Lejeune.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Once again, it's our pleasure to be here, and we really thank you for the opportunity to serve the parish as its auditors. Once again, what we've got for you tonight is the 2008 results. Included in your packet, we've got the 2008 financial statement that's been audited, a copy of our management letter, and I've got a recap of the results that I'm going to go through. The audit sort of broke a record this year and got up over 250 pages, so it continues to grow like the parish. So what I've got is about 14 pages of a recap that I'm going to walk through with you. If you go into your booklet, you should see the first thing. It's going to be a presentation of 2008 operating results. If you move on into page 3, what I'm going to do is walk through some of the financial highlights for the last 5 years. Basically starting here, looking at just the parish's financial position and some of the key areas of the parish from a financial position standpoint. We start with just your total assets that the parish owns, and for 2008, the parish ended the year with right at about $350 million in total assets. And that's really comprised of two major areas. One is the blue part of this graph, which is your cash. That's at about $158 million at the end of, $140 million at the end of 2008. That's down from 2007, where you were at about $158 million. The other big area that you have is capital assets. That's basically the buildings you own, the equipment you own, the value of the streets that you maintain, just basically your infrastructure. And that's the red part of this graph, and you can see that's another big component. For the year, we ended right at about $170 million, and that's up from last year where we were at about $140. So used some cash during this year, and we exchanged that, and we built our asset base. And a lot of that money went, as you'll see throughout this presentation, to some of your infrastructure needs, roads and things of that nature. Looking at the next part of this page, which is cash and investments, cash is the most precious asset that the parish has. For the year, we finished at about $140 million that I had mentioned earlier, which is down. And really, there are four components to this. The first three, which is the green, red, and blue, are more operational in nature. That these are just your basic operating funds. And basically, you can see for the last 2 years, those have remained pretty flat. So you're not using you're not creating deficits from an operational standpoint. The decrease in cash for 2008 basically was in the yellow area, which was your capital projects. You know, you accumulated a lot of money in 2007 from some debt issues for a number of targeted capital projects, and some of those commitments began to be funded in 2008. So that's obviously using some of the cash that you had on hand. But as you can see, going back to 04, 05, and 06, you're clearly way above where you were, and you still have a lot of capital outlay money available for spending. Going on to page 4, looking at the other side of your balance sheet, and when you look at when you look at financial position of any entity, you look at the assets, but you also compare that to the liabilities and the debt that you owe to just measure how well you're doing from a financial position standpoint. Overall, you've got debt roughly at about $115 million at the end of 2008, and that's down from last year where we were at about $120 million. Equity, which is the yellow part of this graph, that's basically your part of the assets that you own. That's your net financial position. If you look at how that's gone since 04 all the way to 08, you can see every year you've been able to grow that. And looking at 2008, it basically did the same thing. That for the year we started at about $205 million in net worth, and then we grew that to around $231 million in net worth by the end of 2008. So two things happened. One, cash, our assets grew during 2008, debt went down, and we grew our financial position, or the parish's net worth. Moving over to the next side of the sheet, this is basically the fund equity on a fund basis, and really a couple of observations. One, all the operating funds, which is basically primarily made up of that green area, you can see that, and that grew from 2007 just slightly. The real decrease that you experienced on a fund basis was just the use of capital outlay funds. What happens typically is you accumulate money in capital projects funds, and you fund big projects. So typically over a period of time, you grow in cash, you grow in money, and then you spend it. And that's basically what's happening here. If you move on to page 5 and look at the operational aspects, your revenue and expenditures, one thing on the first part, which is our revenues, you can see from 2004 all the way to 2008, the parish has continued to experience growth in its revenue. Going back to 2006, you had total revenue of about $55 million. 2007, that grew to about $60 million. And then in 2008, that grew to about $75 million. So there's been a steadily increase in terms of the resources available to fund government. Looking at the major components, you've got two parts here. The blue part, which is your sales tax, and the green part, which is your property taxes. So for the year ended 2008, we hit right at about $53 million in sales tax and property taxes. Comparing that to last year, you were at about $46 million. So a net 15% growth rate in terms of those resources. The other thing I'll point out to you that's somewhat unusual is if you look at the red part, which is listed as intergovernmental revenues, those are resources that you receive from other governments, state of Louisiana, the federal government primarily. The growth that was experienced in 2008 primarily related to hurricane relief. We had a natural disaster in this area, and we got about a little over $7 million in funding to help in that relief effort. So normally we don't experience those types of things. Nobody looks for those types of things. So as you see in 04 through 07, we didn't have those kind of catastrophic events, and as a result, you didn't have that kind of funding. Looking over on the next side of the page at our expenditures, basically for the year you can see that's grown considerably from where it's been over the last 4 years. And really two things to point out. Starting at the bottom of the graph at the blue, the dark blue, that's basically public safety. And for all the years up through 07, it's been a pretty consistent number. Looking at 2008, you can see it's grown considerably, and that's where all the Hurricane Gustav costs were captured. So we got $7 million in, and you can see you spent about $7 million outside of the norm. The other operational departments are pretty consistent. The green area, which is capital outlay, we spent a lot of money last year on just basic infrastructure improvements. And as a result, you can see that that's up. In 2008, it was about $24 million in total spending compared to about $13 million for the year before. So that's why you see you got a big spike in costs. You go on to page 6 and just focus for just a moment on sales tax. And this is sort of, I'm talking without having Ms. LeBlanc's report earlier. But looking at 2008, which was the best year on record for the parish, hitting around $35 million in total sales tax collections on all three of your sales taxes, which was about a 13% increase over last year. But from 04 to 2008, you've gone from about $20 million in total sales tax collections to right at $35 million. Now, looking on the other side, here this basically breaks down for you the undedicated sales tax, the 1 cent sales tax that the parish collects, which is its only undedicated monies that it can use at your discretion for basic services in the parish. Really a couple of points. One, if you look at the green, blue, and red, you really are spending this money in two different areas. One is to help you fund the general fund, and the other thing is that you dedicate the large portion of the remaining funds to roads. For 2008, we used about $4.7 million of that funding for road-related activities. That's your road and bridge fund and maintenance and construction fund. But overall, you collected about $15 million in this 1 cent tax, and you spent $12 million. So you had a net gain of $3 million to fund balance or net worth from this activity. So although we may experience declines, it's not as if you've been spending up. And for each of the last 3 years, you've been spending about $12 million. So one of the things you have to be careful with sales taxes is not spend up to the good times, and because when things go down and sales tax ultimately always goes down, you're not caught into a bad position of spending up to the highest point, and you haven't done that. Looking at page 7, and this basically looks at the major area dealing with East Ascension drainage. It's basically funded by property and sales tax, and has followed the same trends that I mentioned earlier, that it's been on an upswing. Looking at the expenditures made, two things really jump out at me. One, looking at the green, blue, and yellow, this represents some of your operational expenses, and you can see for the last 3 years you haven't experienced any major increases. And that's a pretty big accomplishment, that you're able to keep your costs relatively flat from an operational standpoint. The big spike that you have in 2008 is a transfer that's made to your East Ascension Drainage Sinking Fund, basically to retire debt. And one of the things you did in 2008 was call some debt that was pretty significant, about $6.5 million, that you early retired some debt. So that's partly why you've got a big increase. You had some money here. You were able to utilize some of your own resources to save debt service over the long term. Going on to page 8 and looking at road construction and maintenance activities, basically this fund is primarily funded from the 1 cent sales tax and partially from the half-cent sales tax. But basically you got about $12 million of dedicated resources for road work, and you were able to bring that up from $10 million from 2007. Now, looking at the same picture in terms of your expenses that you're making, same thing in terms of an operational standpoint. You know, you have primarily personnel-related costs here, and really for the last 2 years, you haven't had a huge upswing in terms of your cost commitments. But looking at where you're spending the money, you're primarily spending it on infrastructure improvements, that you're spending it on making the roads better or constructing roads. So you're putting $12 million of resources into this fund, and for 2008, the lion's share of it went for road projects. What I want to finish up on is, if you move on to page 10, is it's just I took out from our management letter some of our recommendations that we made, three to talk about. And one I pulled out was just dealing with multi-year budgeting. I mean, this is something that we continue to recommend for the parish. One, it just makes a lot of sense for a growing community, and really gives you a sense of vision about how you're going to expend the resources that you have, which are always limited, and define what community needs make the biggest priority. One of the things that you have done, which makes a lot of sense and is a major component of doing this type of exercise, is setting some sort of revenue forecasting tool inside government, and you have a committee that I understand you put in place, and that's one of the major purposes behind multi-year budgeting. I mean, one of the things you need to do is, what do we anticipate our resources being over the long term? How much resources do we have available to fund the needs of the community? So I think this is something that you can build on, that to the extent this committee becomes functioning and really productive, the next step would be to then determine how are you going to use those anticipated resources to meet parish needs. Going on to page 11, one additional comment we continued to make was dealing with the sewer utility operations. And this sort of falls in line, in my way of thinking, with the multi-year budgeting comment, that here is something that these are some activities the parish has undertaken for a number of reasons. They don't make money, and they're costing you quite a bit of money. And if you look at the trend on this, every year that deficit continues to grow. You currently charge about a $30 flat fee for those users in the system, and you've got about 450 users being charged about 5.2 million, or you have 450 users on a system that's valued at $5.2 million. If you work that out on a 40-year term, that if you can expect a sewer system to last 40 years, that would require a $24 charge monthly to get your investment back. So you basically aren't covering that, and you're not really covering the operational costs that you have. So part of the problem that that you have with operating a small system is you don't have a high volume of users. So you can't go out and charge $100 a month, but you certainly 30 something that, or your user fee something you want to look at on a periodic basis to minimize the deficit that you are experiencing. But I think this is something I would look at over a longer term period. Immediately, I would address the user rate, and then two, just what is a long-term plan to address some of these deficits that you continue to experience. And then the last comment on page 12 that I wanted to make reference to is we've reported this for some period of time that you've got some smaller entities that receive public funds through the parish, and in last year's legislative act, the state basically put into law that to the extent that these entities, and some of these entities weren't complying with the state audit law, which if they receive public monies, those monies have to be reviewed in some capacity, and those reports submitted to the legislative auditor. What the legislature did last year was, to the extent any of these entities don't comply with the state audit law, they basically jeopardize not only their own funding, but they can go upstream and jeopardize the person that's given them their money. So a lot of effort has been made over the last couple of years to address this, and in particular last year. And a lot of these entities did move forward and start complying with the law, the state audit law, and you only had 2 left. So a lot of progress was made, but still some progress to go. And then the last thing is on page 13. I just basically listed out some of the other comments that we have, which is in the management letter and in our audit report. We discussed these matters with the finance department at the conclusion of the audit, and we did have an audit exit conference in June where we got into more detail than I have tonight. But the detailed information is there for you to review. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call me.
I did want to make a couple comments. First, as far as the management recommendations, multi-year budgeting is, of course, something we've talked about a lot at this committee. And as Tommy mentioned, one of the 2 components of that is the revenue side. And we're working out the kinks as far as the revenue estimating and having an expert come and consult with us at this committee about helping us better predict over a number of years what our revenue side is going to look like, so we can kind of understand that side of the big picture. The other side, of course, is about the major expenditures. How you take a bite out of an apple that's as big as something around providing sewer to the parish and developing a master road plan and all that. And I think what will help us with that, and what we're kind of waiting on for that side of the equation, is around the results of the master plan that's being conducted right now. So as that plan progresses, I think that'll give us the roadmap we need to then really be able to get down to brass tacks and have those kind of discussions. So, other comments? Motion by Councilman Pat Bell to accept the audit. Second by Councilman Benny Johnson. Any further discussion? Okay, Mr. Parish President.
On your recommendations, I'm going to ask you, is there anything that parish government does that actually makes money?
Well, I mean, I think, one, government's not designed to make money. I mean, that's why you tax. I think one of the difficulties you have with running the sewer operation is that sewer's not designed to make money. You don't have the water. Water typically offsets a lot of these deficits. But at this point, when you pull out the taxes that you receive, of course, you're not going to make money from direct charges to people.
I guess that answers my question, because a lot of times we get questioned about things that we do and why we do them and for what reasons. If you look at the sewer, you spent $5.4 million for 450 people.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's good, because we're providing a service to those people, and we're going to continue to do so. We do the same thing with recreation. We spend about $1.5 million, $1.7 million, with no dedicated fund, okay, for that. But we provide a service, okay, to those people. we are mandated by law for the criminal court fund. We spend $500,000 now, where in years past, we used to collect money. Okay? So, again, we go in the hole. So as we grow as a community, what we do with the monies that we receive, and if you look at this, I think it's been well spent, and it's not a whole lot of waste, but we have to continue providing services. And the more people that we have to come in, we're going to have to provide more services. So, again, I just want to clarify the fact. I mean, we build jails, we feed prisoners, we spend quite a bit of money there. We spend money on other things. So, but I appreciate your audit. I think it was good. You did a good job, and it seemed like the comments are getting less and less, and that's good.
Right. I would also add on that is we had no new comments, and we had a couple that fell off. So some progress, some things are moving, but we're not quite there on everything.
Mr. President, on the other comments, I know we discussed the exit conference and everything, but we have a plan to address those around receipts and documentation and all that kind of stuff. Okay, great. Anything else?
Good job, Tommy.
All right.
Thank you.
Any objection? Motion passes. Agenda item number 21, bids. 21A, precast reinforced box culverts.
On July the 14th, 2009, the purchasing department received 2 bids for precast reinforced box culverts. The bids received from Design Precast and Pipe Incorporated and Capital Concrete Products. And after reviewing the bids by the purchasing department and the Department of Public Works, they recommend accepting the lowest qualifying bid from Design Precast and Pipe Inc.
Motion to accept low bid.
Motion by Councilman Thompson, second by Councilman Joseph to accept the low bid. Any discussion? Any objection? So moved. 21B, Council on Aging renovation.
Bids received on this project were received July 23rd, 2009, and 6 bids were presented for the Hurricane Gustav repairs to the Council on Aging building. The bids that were received were from KTB Properties, LLC, JVB Consulting Construction, Getro General Contractors, GM Buildings, Inc., Chris Potan Construction, and Batco Construction and Maintenance. And after the purchasing department reviewed the bids, and also the facility maintenance department and Perez architectural firm, they recommended accepting the lowest qualifying bid from Batco Construction and Maintenance.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Pat Bell, second by Councilman Oliver Joseph. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion passes. 21C, lease of Ascension Parish government surplus property.
Bids were received by the purchasing department on August the 5th. They received 1 bid for the lease of Ascension Parish government surplus property, and the bid was from Capital City Family Health Center. And after the purchasing department reviewed this bid with the parish legal department, they recommended accepting the lowest qualifying bid from Capital City Family Health Center.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Joseph.
Second.
Second by Councilman Thompson. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion passes. Agenda item 23, maintenance agreement including mowing and litter pickup for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2010 between the Parish of Ascension and the State of Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Thompson, second by Councilman Bell. Any discussion? Any objection? So moved.
Motion adjourned, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to adjourn by Councilman Lambert. Second by Councilman Cullen. Meeting adjourned.